Have you ever wondered why some photos just look better? It's not always about the subject or the high-end camera, it's about the composition. Composition in photography is an art. It's the arrangement of elements within a frame that gives a photo its wow factor. This video will guide you through the labyrinth of photographic composition. We'll explore 10 essential rules that can dramatically enhance your photos, making them not just shots, but stories. These rules include the rule of thirds, the golden ratio, leading lines, diagonal composition, frame within a frame, figure to ground, fill the frame, center dominant eye, patterns and repetition, and symmetry and asymmetry. Understanding and applying these rules can transform your photography from ordinary to extraordinary. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just got your first camera, this guide can help you see the world through a more artistic lens. Stay tuned as we delve into these 10 rules, starting with the rule of thirds. First up, we have the rule of thirds. This rule is a fundamental pillar in the world of photography, providing a simple yet effective method to create balanced and interesting shots. Imagine dividing your frame into 9 equal parts by drawing 2 equally spaced horizontal lines and 2 equally spaced vertical lines. The rule of thirds suggests that the points of interest in your photograph should be placed along these lines or their intersections. This technique allows the viewer's eyes to interact with the photo more naturally, creating a sense of depth and enhancing the visual experience. Consider a sunset photo, for instance. Placing the horizon on the lower third line allows more emphasis on the dramatic sky. Or in a portrait, positioning the subject's eyes along the top third line captures a more engaging expression. So remember, divide your frame into 9 equal parts and place your subject at the intersections for a more pleasing composition. Next, we explore the golden ratio. This fascinating concept finds its roots in mathematics, specifically in the Fibonacci sequence, but its aesthetics have been celebrated in art and architecture for centuries. It defines an ideal proportion, approximately 1.618, that is said to be pleasing to the human eye. In photography, the golden ratio can be applied through a spiral, rectangle, or triangle grid. It's all about placing the focal points of your image along these lines or intersections. It's not just a rule, it's the harmony of nature reflected in your photos. Imagine a seashell, its spirals following the golden ratio, or a sunflower, its seeds spiraling out in perfect harmony. That's the power of the golden ratio. Photographs that successfully employ the golden ratio have a certain balance and flow that draw the eye in a natural and pleasing way. The golden ratio can add a unique and powerful dynamic to your photos, so don't be afraid to experiment with it. Now, let's talk about leading lines. Leading lines are a potent tool in the art of composition. They have a dynamic impact on how your photos are perceived. Imagine lines drawn in the scene that lead the viewer's eye towards a point of interest. These lines can be explicit, like a road or a fence, or they can be implicit, formed by the arrangement of elements in the frame. Leading lines create a visual narrative. They guide the viewer's gaze through the image, from one point to another, creating a sense of direction and depth. They can be straight or curved, vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. Regardless of their form, they always serve one purpose: to lead the viewer's eye where you want it to go. These lines also add a layer of sophistication and intrigue to your photos, making them more engaging. So when you're framing your next shot, look for those leading lines. They can turn a good photo into a great one. Leading lines can guide the viewer's eye and add depth to your photos, making them more engaging. Moving on, we have the diagonal composition and frame within a frame. The diagonal composition is all about creating dynamic, engaging images. Instead of aligning elements horizontally or vertically, you place them diagonally across your frame. This adds a sense of movement, depth, and perspective, making your photos more intriguing. Now let's talk about the frame within a frame technique. This involves using elements within your photograph to frame the main subject. It could be a window, a door, or even natural elements like tree branches. This technique directs the viewer's attention toward your main subject, adding depth and context to your image. Imagine a photograph with a stunning landscape viewed through a rustic window frame. The window adds a layer of interest, guiding the viewer's gaze towards the picturesque scene beyond. These techniques can add interest and complexity to your photos, creating a more captivating visual story. Next, we'll discuss figure to ground and fill the frame. First up, figure to ground. This rule is all about contrast. It suggests that your subject, or figure, should contrast with the background or ground to stand out. This could be achieved through color, texture, or light and shadow differences. The stronger the contrast, the more your subject pops, making your photo more eye-catching. Now let's move on to fill the frame. As the name suggests, this rule encourages you to fill your photo's frame with your subject. This draws attention directly to your subject, eliminating distractions and creating a more powerful impact. You can achieve this by getting close to your subject or using a longer focal length. It's a great way to highlight the details and textures of your subject. These rules can help your subject stand out and fill your frame with interesting elements. So don't be shy to experiment with contrast and proximity to make your photos pop. Let's now explore the center-dominant eye rule and patterns and repetition. The center-dominant eye rule is about placing the dominant eye of your subject in the center of the frame. This draws the viewer directly to the eye and then to the rest of the image, creating a strong and engaging visual connection. It's particularly effective in portraiture, where a direct gaze can be compelling. Now let's shift gears to patterns and repetition. These elements can be found everywhere, from the natural world to man-made structures. The repeated elements create a rhythm that engages the viewer's eye, leading it through the image and creating a sense of order and predictability. Incorporating these elements into your compositions requires a keen eye for detail and a creative mindset. Look for opportunities to use patterns to emphasize your subject or to create visual interest. Remember, these techniques can create a sense of balance, rhythm, and harmony in your photos, enhancing their visual appeal. Finally, let's discuss symmetry and asymmetry. These are compelling elements in the world of photography that can dramatically impact the feel of your images. Symmetry, as the name suggests, is about balance and consistency. It's when one side of your image mirrors the other. Think of a perfectly reflected lake or a butterfly with its wings spread. These images captivate us because of their flawless equilibrium. Asymmetry, on the other hand, thrives on imbalance. It's about incorporating elements that don't mirror each other, creating a sense of tension and dynamism. Picture a lopsided tree or a city skyline with buildings of different heights. These scenes draw us in, not because they're perfect, but because they're intriguingly imperfect. Both symmetry and asymmetry have their place in photography. They can create a sense of harmony or induce a feeling of discord, depending on how they're used. Symmetry and asymmetry can add intrigue and balance to your photos, making them more visually compelling. Now that we've covered all 10 rules, let's do a quick recap. First, we dove into the rule of thirds, a fundamental concept that divides your frame into 9 equal parts. It's like a tic-tac-toe grid on your viewfinder that helps you place the subject or key elements along these lines or at their intersections. This rule can help you create balance, add interest, and make your photos more engaging. Then we explored the golden ratio, a powerful composition tool that's been used for centuries in art and design. It's based on a mathematical ratio that's pleasing to the eye and can be applied in photography through a spiral, rectangle, or triangle. Next up was leading lines, which draw the viewer's eye through the photograph towards the main subject. They can be anything from roads and fences to shadows and light streaks. This rule can help direct attention, create depth, and add a dynamic element to your shots. We also touched on diagonal composition and frame within a frame. Diagonal lines can add movement and energy to your photos, while a frame within a frame can add depth and context. They're both great ways to create more interesting and compelling images. In our journey, we also encountered the figure-to-ground rule, which emphasizes the subject by contrasting it against the background. And we learned how to fill the frame to eliminate distractions and focus on the subject. We then discussed the center-dominant eye rule, which suggests placing the dominant eye of your subject in the center of the frame for a more impactful portrait. And we examined patterns and repetition, which can add rhythm and structure to your photos. Lastly, we looked at symmetry and asymmetry. Symmetry can create a sense of harmony and balance, while asymmetry can add tension and interest. Both can be powerful tools in your photography arsenal. Each of these rules offers a different way to view and capture the world around you. They're not just rules, but tools to help you create compelling images that tell a story, evoke emotion, and connect with your viewers. Remember, rules are meant to guide, not confine your creativity. So go out there, experiment, and create stunning photographs.